Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast and the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in again. This week, we are going to be getting back on track with our Dad's Guide to Divorce. We spent a few weeks there previewing the men's summit, which was absolutely awesome yesterday. I know there were some of you who are listeners that attended, so thank you for doing that. If you missed it, you will be able to check out some replays of some of the talks, which were really incredibly powerful from some really fantastic men that do work specifically with other men. And so it was a blessing to be able to spend a little bit of time with them yesterday, listening to all of the wisdom that they were sharing. And I know that you will benefit from that as well. You can find more information in those replays that will be coming up at menempowerment.net. So check it out. Also want to welcome some of the new members to the Divorced Advocate community. Those are Jeff, Steve, Mike, and Ozzy. If you're not a member yet, check it out at thedivorcedadvocate.com. We have all kinds of resources on the website. It's structured to give you some help wherever you're at in your divorce and at whatever stage or whatever means you have for obtaining support. So there's some free stuff all the way through paid stuff. Check it out there. The divorce quiz is probably one of the top ones there under the divorce quiz tab, where you can go through. It takes about 10 minutes and see where you're at mentally and emotionally compared to others who have gone through divorce. It'll give you some immediate results and also the opportunity for us to get together, review those results, and talk about what you've got going on. So please check out the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com and get the help that you need and deserve. All right, today, like I mentioned, we're going to get back onto the Dad's Guide to Divorce, and we're going to be talking about the last step, which is master your psychology. So when I'm working with fathers entering into a divorce or have recently been divorced, there's this 5-step process through which I assist them in identifying and implementing an action plan for their lives. I've been sharing this specific process with detailed ways in which you can utilize it in order to achieve an amazing life for you and your children. And the previous 4 have been short and sweet. We're trying to keep them in about 15 or 20 minutes. And then the idea is that you're going to spend that other 10 minutes that you would otherwise be listening to this show and implementing what we talk about in there. So this is meant to be informative, but also for you to work on implementing those skills into your life. So step 5, master your psychology. And I'm going to just briefly go through what the previous 4 episodes, because it's been so long since we visited those. In the last 4 episodes, I shared the first 4 steps, and those were clarifying your vision and direction, number 1. Number 2, strategizing your actions. Number 3, upgrading your skills. And number 4, optimizing your environment. And as I discussed, many men struggle with clarifying a vision and direction for their lives when starting in and entering into a divorce or beginning life post-divorce. I know this was absolutely true of me as well. But it's critical to begin this because as men, our identity is closely aligned with our vision for our lives. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we we go through in this divorce process is the chaos of not knowing what our outcome is going to be. So by clarifying a vision and direction, it helps you to align a direction in which you want to go. That doesn't mean that you might have to change that direction a little bit as things go through, as you progress through the divorce or post-divorce, but it means that you start to work towards the vision of where you want it to go. And so if you haven't listened to that first one, go back, and I'm going to say this in general. If you're just tuning into this episode for the first time, go back and start with the Dad's Guide to Divorce. Number one, clarifying your vision and direction, and then listen to the other 4 steps, because they're meant to compound upon each other. So once we've clarified our vision and direction, it's necessary to begin the process of strategizing your actions. And there seems to be a lot of confusion about how to set goals these days and put forth the effort to achieve them. But I describe in that step 2 a simple 3-step process, which is incredibly helpful, one that I use as well myself. And then in step 3, we talked about upgrading your skills. We discussed that, as with any change in circumstances, many skills are either not up to snuff or woefully outdated, and you may need to learn or relearn a skill in order to implement the behavior or behaviors necessary to meet your goal. So check out how to do that in Upgrade Your Skills, step number 3. And then our last episode on this, not the last episode last week, but the last episode on Dad's Guide to Divorce, was optimizing your environment. And we discussed that each day we have a finite amount of willpower, and if we are directing that willpower towards combating things in our environment that are working against our best interests, we're wasting energy that can otherwise be directed to a positive effort or outcome. So the point was, instead by controlling your environment, you are eliminating the need to focus on and expend willpower on these detrimental influences. Basically, control what you can control and let everything else go. So go back and check that out. And again, each of these steps compounds upon the others. So go through, take your time, listen to the episode, and then work on each of the skills that we discuss in there, and then come back to this episode, because what we're going to talk about now, mastering your psychology, is the final step, and arguably maybe the most challenging step. I know it was for me, and it also is for many men that I work with. And while each of us is blessed with phenomenal and magnificent minds, it can also be a challenge in the sense that much of what we think in our resulting behaviors are imagined and have been hardwired into us without our awareness. And this is where it's critical to become mindful of our thoughts. There's a great quote by Eckhart Tolle, who wrote the book The Power of the Now, which I highly recommend reading. And it is, quote, "Much suffering, much unhappiness arises when you take each thought that comes into your head for the truth," end quote. So let me read that again, because it's pretty profound, and it's something that maybe you want to write down on a little sticky note and put it on your computer. I need this reminder oftentimes as well, and that is, much suffering, much unhappiness arises when you take each thought that comes into your head for the truth. Okay. And so the reason I've saved this step for last is because while some of the previous 4 steps include tapping into your eternal awareness, they primarily focus on identifying and implementing steps in your physical world. But this step and the process for mastering it is purely internal and requires laying a foundation of mindfulness that will require an immense amount of energy and attention. So I want you to stop for a moment and just consider the fact that all the thoughts that go through your mind in a day are not witnessed by anybody but you. Just think about that for a minute. Like, nobody else looking at you has any idea what thoughts are going through your mind. And while the physical world around us can be observed by everybody, there's nobody that can observe your thoughts. So have you ever seen a thought walk by you? No, you have not. So therefore, we all experience one physical world, but there are around 7.8 billion people in the world. That's the world's approximately the world's population. There are 7.8 billion internal worlds going on all together right now as we speak. And each of those internal worlds is being experienced by an individual at any given time in this human existence. And I've heard it described as our I've heard it described, but I've also used the description for myself is our own quote internal circus, right? That's how I feel about it. Sometimes I think like, what is this internal circus which is going on in my mind? Which to me seems accurate as I take stock of some, if you think about some of the silly or ridiculous thoughts that come through your mind sometimes. I have them. I know that we all have them. If we're honest about it, we share them on a regular basis, some of us would probably be like, yeah, we're all pretty damn crazy. Anyway, when we reflect on this fact, it becomes empowering to understand that our thoughts are our own and we have the power to control them. So let me say that again. When we reflect on the fact that we have our own internal circus going on all the time, that we all have our internal worlds happening all at the same time, at any given time, like we all have this happening, it's empowering to understand that they are all our own. They're not somebody else's, and that we do have the power to control them. And this gives us what I call and what is called agency over our minds. So agency basically just means you have the power to or control over something. We have agency over our minds. We have the power and control over our own minds. So what makes a thought real is the energy that we give to it. If we're having a thought about a friend or a coworker, that person cannot see the thought, or our soon-to-be ex-wife, or our kids, or anybody else. Nobody can see that thought like they can see the expression on your face or a physical change in your body, like sweating or flushing in the face. Nobody can see your internal world. The only way that thought becomes empowered is through our willingness to give it space in our mind. Take up our time thinking about it and consciously or subconsciously acting on it. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm actually going to repeat a lot of this stuff. And if you want to read some of this, I have all these articles through the blogs on the website, the different 5 steps. Also, you can find them out there on Medium as well, medium.com under my author's title as well. I've got the 5 steps on there in like a blog format as well, so you can read those too. But let me read that again. The only way that thought becomes empowered is through our willingness to give it space in our mind, take up our time thinking about it, and consciously or subconsciously acting on it. So that's profound when you think about it. So our thoughts don't have any control. It's what we do with them that gives them control. Then that's where the agency comes in. We have the power to either give them some kind of control or not give them some control. But how can we control our thoughts? That's the big question. And the answer is simply we can't. So these thoughts come in, and I don't remember what the number is, but we have some ridiculous amount of thoughts that come into our mind in any single day. And the answer is we cannot control these thoughts. We don't conjure them up. They simply appear. They appear without our approval. They appear without our summoning or our request. But the most powerful tool of agency that we have over them is to learn to become aware of them. Now, this might feel like an overwhelming prospect if you're like me and have or had thoughts about your divorce, your ex, your kids, your work, your finances, what's for dinner, what's the kid's next activity, etc., and have them all happening at one time, right? It becomes overwhelming. Even in the best times of our lives, in perfect circumstances, when things are going tremendously and perfectly well, we have all kinds of thoughts that are coming in. During a difficult and challenging time, that seems to only exponentially increase with particularly ones that might be ones that we're going to give power to worry about on. So just know that that's always happening. You can't control whether or not thoughts come into your mind. That's something that when you learn, and hopefully maybe some of you, when we talked about meditation, looked into learning about meditation. That's one of the things that meditational practitioners will talk about, which is you can't clear your mind. You don't just go brain dead. You don't just keep all the thoughts. Thoughts come into your mind all the time. You have no control over it. It's how you manage when they come in. And that's what meditation helps you to do, is how to manage them, how to move them away, how to put them somewhere, how to do something with them, which is why I highly, highly recommend getting into meditation. So there is, and we're going to talk about something that works a little bit in conjunction with how you can assist in the process of this. And I briefly mentioned in my previous article, in step 3, upgrade your skills. And that tool is called mindfulness. And the definition of mindfulness is the ability to know what is happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away with it. And if you go to the website called happify.com, they have a really cool animated, just a brief animated video that describes what mindfulness is. And I highly recommend it because it just kind of puts it in perspective. But it is the ability to know what is happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away with it. So my first introduction to the concept of mindfulness was reading the book, The Power of Now, that I mentioned earlier, written by Eckhart Tolle. And this fantastic book conveys that at every moment that we get stuck worrying about the future or ruminating in the past, we forsake the present moment. So instead of being present at this time right now and having the experience of life that is happening for you right now, we get stuck, and this is very common, especially during divorce, because we don't know what's going to happen, worrying about what's going to happen in the future, which we can't necessarily control an outcome right now, or ruminating about what may have happened in the past, or what might be reasons for or reasoning about why we are getting a divorce, or what we might have done better, or this or that, and everything else. We forsake the present moment by doing that. And he explains that the only thing we can truly have an impact on is the moment we are currently experiencing. The book goes deep into the concept. And for those of you who are like me and need to know and understand a concept in detail, I highly, highly recommend it. In the book, the book is very esoteric. I've read it maybe three times, maybe 4 times now. And every time, it's probably time for me to go back and read it again. Every time I read it, I garner something a little bit more and deepen my understanding around mindfulness. And so I highly recommend reading it, because and reading it multiple times, because just the first time through is hard to grasp, especially if this is your first introduction to mindfulness. So how does one achieve this superpower called mindfulness? And this is where it'll be beneficial for you to take some time to learn about the different ways in which you can strive to be mindful. And I say strive because staying present takes an immense amount of effort, especially if there's kids screaming, dinner's burning, rent's late, life's happening, all this stuff going on. You have to be consciously aware, and you actually have to make the effort to do it. But I can assure you that being able to remain present and aware of your thoughts will move you toward a much, much more meaningful life experience, even in the most challenging of times, such as what you're going through now in divorce. So for me, I was drawn to meditation, like I said, as my resource for learning mindfulness. But there are others, and I encourage you to try the different modalities. Some of those would be breathing exercises. That's something that we actually talked about in our group meeting on Monday, this last Saturday. about handling the emotions that come up and how to breathe through them. That was something that you can also look into. It's very, very helpful, especially when these strong emotions come up in a time that's inconvenient or at a time that's inconvenient. There's movement exercises that you can do. There's body scans or other ones. So there's also a fantastic site that I'll recommend. It's called Mindfulness Toolkit, and that provides a great starting point for learning and implementing a practice. So if you just Google Mindfulness Toolkit, then you can find that and click on that site. It's a really awesome site. So as your skills at becoming mindful increase and you're better capable of operating in and from the present moment, you'll begin to experience the previous 4 steps of this Dad's Guide to Divorce become easier to work through and implement. The realm of your physical world, especially that of divorce, will begin to shift in your mind, and your life will align into one that you design and desire through the assistance of the 5 steps in this guide. So I just encourage you to continue to work through the steps. It's an ongoing process and one that is a resource for you throughout life after divorce. And I'm still utilizing them now 11 years later. So go through the steps, utilize them once, you can utilize them again. All of the things that you'll learn and the skills that you will learn in each and every one of them will be beneficial to you in life post-divorce and ongoing. And so I just want to close this Dad's Guide to Divorce series just by sharing with you how courageous I know that you are to be listening to this, to be working through these steps, and that your willingness to do so is a testament to your desire for a deeper understanding of yourself and the world-changing impact that you'll have as the man and father you'll become. I'm proud of you. I know each and every one of you who tune into this podcast to better yourselves, to learn and understand how to get through this difficult time and to thrive post-divorce, are really looking and seeking to be the best man you can possibly be. And I'm incredibly proud of you for doing that. And so if you haven't heard that today or recently, just know that I am proud of you, even if we've never met. If you're tuning in and you're one of the numbers that I look at every week as to the number of podcast downloads or streams that I hear, each and every one of those represents to me a man that I am proud of, that is really trying to do something to better himself, to better his family, to be there for his kids. And so just keep that in mind. You are important and you are very valuable. I hope that you found some value in this episode today. And if you have, please share it far and wide on social media or in your favorite Facebook platform or LinkedIn platform or social media or TikTok or wherever else you might share it. It helps to get the message out to more dads. If you can, give us a star rating. That helps other dads look at it and go, hey, maybe I should be tuning into it. Even more so, if you will leave a brief comment on whatever podcast platform you are in, just a review of the show and your thoughts around it, that helps immensely too with dads saying, hey, there's some place this might be where I can get some help. So thank you so much for listening. I sincerely appreciate it. Have a terrific week, and God bless. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.